I think you need a hug. Can I hug you? The words were soft but clear, piercing through the frosty hush of Central Park like a whisper from another life. James Holloway turned his head slowly, drawn out of the heavy fog of his thoughts. A little black girl stood before him, her cheeks pink with cold, one mitten missing. Her hair was tucked under a large knit hat, and she looked up at him with wide, steady eyes. "What did you say?" "You look like you need a hug," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. James blinked, unaccustomed to being addressed so directly, especially not by a child. His world had shrunk down to executive memos, quiet dinners alone, and nights where grief echoed louder than silence. "I'm Maya," she added, shifting from one boot to another on the icy ground. "My mommy says hugs don't fix everything, but they help." He managed a soft laugh. "That's pretty wise." "I'm 5, she said proudly, then added, "and a half." James smiled despite himself. "Well, thank you for the offer, Maya." She looked down at something on her wrist, a colorful woven bracelet made of yarn and tiny plastic beads. After a pause, she unfastened it and held it out to him. "You should wear this. It helps me when I'm sad." James hesitated. The bracelet was handmade, frayed in places, clearly precious. "I couldn't." "It's okay," she interrupted gently. "I can make another one." He took it carefully, humbled. She reached out and slid it over his glove and up onto his wrist. It looked out of place against his tailored overcoat and $1,000 watch. But it felt right. "I'm James," he said. "It's very nice to meet you, Maya." She smiled. "Want to meet my mommy? She's right over there." James followed her finger toward a nearby bench. A woman sat wrapped in a thick coat, her eyes tracking Maya like a hawk. There was a paper bag of groceries at her feet. She looked tired but alert, even wary. Maya reached for James's hand. "Come on, she's nice. You'll like her." He let himself be led. It was absurd, this situation, a powerful CEO being escorted through a snowy park by a 5-year-old. Yet something about Maya's presence felt disarming, like a crack of sunlight in a long winter. As they neared, the woman stood. Her gaze moved from Maya to James, guarded but polite. "Maya," she said firmly, "we've talked about wandering off." "I didn't go far, Mommy." He looked like he needed someone. The woman's eyes landed on James. "I'm sorry about her forwardness." "It's all right," James said, his voice surprisingly soft. "She's something special." She nodded slowly. "I'm Anna. Thank you for not being, a threat." James offered a rare smile. Yes, there was a pause. Anna looked at the bracelet on his wrist and then back at him. "She gives those only when she means it." "I figured," he said, glancing at it. "I'm honored." They stood in silence for a beat longer before Anna gestured to the bench. "Would you like some coffee? It's instant, but it's warm." James nodded and they sat. The coffee came from a battered thermos, slightly burnt and overly sweet, but it was comforting. Maya nestled between them, sipping cocoa from a small cup, content. "You're not from around here," Anna said after a moment. "I live just a few blocks away, actually, Upper West Side." Her eyebrows lifted just slightly. "You don't strike me as the park bench type." "Not usually," James admitted. "Today is an exception." "Anniversary?" James blinked at her. "Excuse me?" "You've got that look," Anna said gently, "like someone remembering something that hurts." He hesitated. 3 years ago, I lost my wife and my son. Car accident." She froze, her breath caught, barely visible in the air. "I'm sorry," she said. "I think I might have treated them." He looked at her confused. "I used to work at St. Luke's Emergency Care. I was on rotation the night of a crash. Mother and son, both in critical condition." The woman had a chain with a locket. "Photos inside." James' stomach dropped. "A silver chain with a gold clasp." "Yes," Anna whispered. "That was her," he said, voice tight. You were there? I didn't know you were. I mean, I didn't know who the husband was. It was chaos. I stayed with her as long as I could. James swallowed hard. Something sharp and grateful welled in his throat. Thank you. She looked away, blinking quickly. I'm sorry we couldn't do more. You stayed, he said. That means more than you know. Moments like these remind us that sometimes the smallest kindness can change everything. Take a moment to tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love hearing from you. And if you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories that stay with you long after the screen fades to black. They sat quietly, the wind brushing through the trees. Maya rested her head on her mother's shoulder, eyes drooping. I used to be in nursing school, Anna said softly. Had to leave when Maya came, still hoping to finish someday. You should, James said, glancing at Maya, then at Anna. Some people are meant to help others. Anna gave a tired smile. It doesn't pay the rent. James looked at the bracelet again. The simple yarn and beads felt heavier now, like a promise. I'll be around, he said as he rose. If you don't mind, Anna studied him. We're usually here around this time. He nodded and looked down at Maya. Thank you for the bracelet. You keep it, she said sleepily, until you're not sad anymore. As James walked back through the snow, the bracelet snug on his wrist. The cold seemed just a little less biting. He didn't smile, but something inside him had shifted. For the first time in years, he felt the faint, fragile tug of healing wrapped in yarn and offered by the smallest hands. The next morning, James Holloway stood in front of his bathroom mirror, fully dressed in his charcoal suit and pale blue tie, but his gaze was fixed on the colorful handmade bracelet still snug around his wrist. He tried to take it off twice. Yet each time his fingers brushed the frayed yarn, he hesitated as though removing it would undo the fragile thread that had pulled him out of his loneliness. For one brief evening, he left it on. His penthouse on the Upper West Side overlooked the skyline, glass and steel rising like monuments to ambition. Yet the air inside remained cold, untouched by laughter or conversation. Breakfast sat untouched on the counter. Scrambled eggs and grapefruit, the kind of meal he used to make for his son on school mornings. He hadn't cooked like that in years. James pushed the plate away. He checked the time. It was too early to visit the park, but he found himself putting on his overcoat anyway, sliding his hands into leather gloves and descending the elevator before reason could stop him. By 9:30, the air was crisp and the park dusted in a new layer of snow. He walked without thinking, drawn back to the bench. It was empty. James sat down, the cold biting through his coat. He looked at the bracelet again. Bright blues, reds, and greens woven together by tiny, clumsy fingers. There was something pure about it, no agenda, no expectation, just care. He stayed for nearly an hour before rising to leave. That afternoon, during a board meeting, he caught one of the VPs glancing at his wrist. New accessory, Mr. Holloway, the man joked. Looks cheerful. James didn't answer. The man chuckled nervously and turned back to the quarterly projections. James, however, found himself watching the bracelet as his fingers absently traced its edge beneath the table. It was a reminder not of charity, but of connection, of humanity. Later that day, at exactly the same time as the day before, he returned to Central Park. They were there. Anna sat on the same bench reading a worn paperback. Maya was crouched near a pile of breadcrumbs, feeding pigeons with a seriousness usually reserved for major negotiations. James hesitated before walking over. Hey, he said gently. Maya looked up, her face lighting like a lamp. Mr. James. She ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist without hesitation. Anna stood, brushing snow off her coat. Well, I guess you're a regular now. I suppose I am. You kept the bracelet, she noted, her voice softer. James raised his wrist. I tried to take it off. Couldn't. Maya grinned. Told you it helps. Anna chuckled. She thinks her crafts have magical properties. They might, James said. It's been a long time since someone rolled her eyes playfully. One each. And as they walked toward the cart, the sky opened up in a sudden summer shower, gentle, warm, soaking them before they could even laugh. James took off his jacket and held it over Maya's head. Anna grabbed his hand and they ran together, drenched and laughing, down the sidewalk. They didn't run from the rain. They ran through it. Weeks passed. The apartment filled with plants Maya tried to keep alive and books Anna stacked in every corner. James turned a small storage room into a home office, nothing fancy. Just a desk and a bulletin board filled with photos, ideas, hand-drawn stars from Maya. One afternoon, Anna found him in that room staring out the window. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He turned. "I was wondering if it's too early to call this home." Anna stepped closer. "James, it's been home since the night she gave you that bracelet." He looked down at the faded thread on his wrist. "It has held longer than anyone expected." "Do you think it's strange," he said, "that I lost everything and somehow it led me here?" "No," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. "I think it led you to us." A year later, they stood on a different stage. Anna, in a white coat, accepting a job at the city's public clinic. Maya, now in third grade, reading chapter books and writing stories that always ended with hugs. And James, no longer a CEO, no longer a man haunted by loss, stood beside them as a partner, a father figure, a man who traded wealth for worth. The Bridge Project thrived quietly, one life at a time. No headlines, no PR campaigns, just help. Real help. And on their first official holiday as a family, James stood in the kitchen watching Anna prepare dinner while Maya danced in socks across the tile floor. The smell of roasted vegetables filled the air. Music played softly. Laughter echoed. He raised his glass. "To the family we found in the places we least expected." Anna lifted hers. "To storms we survived." Maya lifted her juice. "To sunflowers." And in that tiny kitchen, in the soft glow of an ordinary evening, the extraordinary happened. Nothing, no tragedy, no twist, just peace, just love, just home. The story of James, Anna, and Maya teaches us that true family is not defined by blood, but by love, resilience, and the quiet courage to stand by one another when the world turns cold. It reminds us that healing often begins with a simple act of kindness, a hug, a shared meal, a moment of truth. In a world that often values status over sincerity, this story from BUP Stories celebrates the power of human connection, the dignity of every life, and the quiet strength it takes to choose compassion over comfort. Ultimately, it's a testament to how we rebuild after loss.